Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Solutions Lab. I'm Chris Phillips. Thank you so much for taking time to join us here today. And today we have a great topic I'm super excited to talk about. We're going to be taking a look at the Cisco Business Dashboard. And to do that, I got two great presenters here to help us along the way. First off, we have Mark Jacobs from Cisco. He's a system engineer. Mark, how's it going?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And from D&H, we have Skylar O'Donnell. He's the Cisco sales engineer. Skylar, how's it going?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing great. Really excited to be here today with everyone.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic broadcast. We have a lot of great information to tell you guys about today. But before we get started, there's a couple of bits of housekeeping that I want to address. Throughout the presentation, we will be taking questions. We'll try and mix them in during the demo as much as we can, but it's more likely we'll be answering questions at the end of the broadcast, just for how jam-packed things are today. If you want to ask a question, you can do so in the window that I've highlighted for you. We also have a bunch of resources that are available. If you want to take a look at those resources and get a little bit more information on what we're talking about, those are available right there as well in the window that I've highlighted there. But without further ado, Skylar, how about you get us all started here?
Thanks, Chris. I'm really excited to talk about this, and I know Marcus too. Cisco recently relaunched their SMB brand. They've really kind of refocused on it. You may ask yourself why. Before they relaunched it, they already accounted, the SG series and some of the others already accounted for about 5% of ports worldwide. So they were already a pretty significant portion out there. Since then, local businesses, small and medium businesses have really become a focus of people wanting to shop local, and they've continued to grow, especially with the pandemic. We've seen a really big need for companies that might not have always invested in their technology, really looking for a new product that can take them kind of into the 21st century if they weren't already there, and get them, up and running, able to connect to clouds. Just playing a crucial role in their everyday business journey and processes. Mm-hmm. And so Cisco has realized this need and tried to build a product that is reliable, scalable, and affordable, and addresses some of the needs that they saw weren't being met, such as a really great network management solution. So essentially what they've done is relaunched what was their SMB brands to the Cisco Business or Design for Business brand. It's essentially a portfolio of various affordable hardware designed and built for small and medium businesses. They can be managed through a dashboard, which we'll show you here after a couple demos. It can also be managed through a brand new mobile app, which they just re-released. It's really great, really easy to use, as well as several other management means that we'll discuss. It's a really simple, reliable experience throughout the entire portfolio. You should kind of see a universal UI throughout all of it. And we're honestly really excited to show you this. So you may ask yourself kind of what has changed. A lot of people are familiar with the SG series, with the RV series, with the WAP series, and a lot of them are still around. They just kind of have a new face and new UI. The SG series has been directly migrated to the Cbs series, and then the WAP series, which a lot of people are familiar with and really like, has been kind of migrated and upgraded to the CBW series. And with that comes a lot of really cool migration things that come in the migration with the management tools and stuff like that. So I know Mark really wanted to talk about the Cisco Business Wireless access points and kind of give us a rundown on those. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about those, and I'll be happy to interject too when it feels good.
Yeah, thank you, Skylar. Really appreciate that. I am also excited to be here to talk about this wonderful product line that we have today. So I just want to really echo Skylar's sentiment around this product line. So like Skylar said, we kind of recently rebranded our Cisco Business Wireless access points into a couple of different flavors, right? So I want to talk about a couple here. So we have two different product families within our access points. We have our typical access points, and then we have our mesh extenders. So kind of to give you more detail around just our access points, there's three models here that I want to really focus on. So let's talk about the CBW 140 access point. Now, this is more for a price-effective AP. I think our suggested list price is around $165. This is a 2x2 radio access point. It has 1 gig port on there for a maximum data rate of around 867 meg. So it's a fairly robust AP. If you're looking for simplicity and flexibility, the 140 access point is where you want to start at. If you need something a little bit beefier and a little bit more powerful, then look at the CBW 240 AP. This is also an AC access point. It's a little beefier with 4x4 radios. And instead of 1 gig port, it has actually 2 gig ports on board here on this AP. All of our APs we're going to talk about support WPA, WPA2, and now WPA3. It has some type of enterprise features if your customers are looking for some advanced features like connecting it to a Radius server or maybe some advanced enterprise security features with WPA3. You're definitely going to get that with our 140 and 240 APs. And then last but not least, yeah,
I was just going to say, I think that's one of the best things, Mark. They really have taken a lot of their enterprise security and things like that and brought it to these products and just kind of inserted it specifically with the wireless and the switching. I just wanted to mention that really quick. Sorry.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What a great point. We really kind of baseline and max our parity with our security in our APs. Even with the integration on Umbrella, I think Skylar's going to mention that, where you can integrate your DNS security using Cisco Umbrella on top of the AP. So all of your users that are connected to the APs are now fully 100% protected on internet traffic using Umbrella. So it's a really good feature and kind of just shows you, the focus of integration that we have with our enterprise class products. Last but not least, on the access point side with CBWs, we have the 145 access point. Now, this is a switch access point, so it does have 4 gig ports on board, with one of those ports being PoE. So you can actually do PoE pass-through. So powering another device using the PoE port, like a phone. This is a hospitality environment. This is a perfect use case, right? So if you have this AP with a 4-port switch on it, maybe it's the back of the TV in your hotel room. Now you can connect the phone without an additional power supply right in the AP, all centrally managed through the dashboard. But, not as powerful as the 240. So this is a 2x2 radio with 80 megahertz built in, but also supporting WPA2 and 3 in a Radius server. And I believe the list price on this puppy here is about $205. So very price effective, very reasonable on price. And getting this in here, the very simplified deployment methodology, and meeting almost enterprise class features for security, still giving you flexibility, but mainly simplicity. It's really where these APs are going to shine.
Exactly. And I was just going to mention, too, they have the 1-year warranty that they come with of phone support, too, that a lot of the competitors don't have, where if you do have an issue, you can just pick up that phone and you actually have someone to talk to that will definitely help you troubleshoot, too. So you're backed by, that Cisco support that, you can really trust.
Yeah, great point, Skylar. And a lot of our partners speak highly of the support they get with these APs. So absolutely recommend utilizing that. But let's talk about the mesh extenders, right? So we first talked about the APs. Now our new product line within the Cisco Business Wireless are mesh extenders, right? So we have 3 different models here. We have the 141, the 142, and 143. Pretty simple on product family model numbers. So let's kind of double down on the 141. So the 141 is a desktop format of an access point, so it can be either mounted or placed right on top of a desk. For your bandwidth, you're looking around 800 meg per AP. This one's not as powerful as some of our 4x4s. This one is a 2x2 radio built in. But great thing here on the 141, it does come with 4 gig ports, just like our switch port AP. And as well, they also have one PoE pass-through port. So highly recommend looking at the 141 mesh extender. That one is priced, I believe, at 235 lists. So very reasonable on price, especially for a mesh extender. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Scott.
I just see these being really, really useful. There's a lot of really easy ways to extend networks. I know prior to this, I worked in consulting in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where there are a lot of historic monuments and a lot of building codes where buildings can't be altered. These are a really great way to kind of just add to the network without needing to do anything major. Or, you know, if you have someone complaining about speeds or something like that, or drops, throwing in a mesh extender is a really great way to cheaply troubleshoot it, or even, you know, figure out if it is something where you need to deploy an AP. Maybe you don't want to do it yet, don't have the time to pull the wiring, anything. They're just a really, really awesome product in what they can do and kind of extend.
Yeah, fully
and I
agree.
think, yeah. And I think from there, I think we have a demo to check out where we're going to look at the Cisco Business Wireless Access Points. We're going to look at the initial setup of it to just give you an idea of how easy and quick it can be set up. Adding a mesh extender and how quick and easy that is. They've really tried to make it as simple as possible. And I believe we're going to do a guest wireless LAN and VLAN on that too, I believe. So whenever we're ready, we can go ahead and kick over to the first demo.
The first step that I've already taken care of is connecting to the guest business wireless setup network. They have a specific name that'll stand out. It's Cisco Business Setup. Once you connect to it, it'll open up this page. There's also two other management methods via the app or via the Cisco Business Dashboard that can also be taken care of. And we'll touch on those a little as we go through other things. But let's go ahead and get started on this process. So first, we'll go ahead and create a admin username, which this is my universal one, and I just have my password for this saved off screen to just kind of speed along the process, and we'll go ahead and hit start. From there, you'll want to select a primary AP name. In this case, it'll be Lab Network 1. And basically, the rest of these are correct for me, so I'll go ahead and leave from that default. And then we'll select mesh, since we are going to go ahead and set up a mesh connection with the mesh extender, but this will also work to mesh APs. And then we would like to go ahead and set up a static IP address so that it makes it a little easier for us to manage, and so our network's a little cleaner. I've already selected this IP address ahead of time, knowing that it is good and works for my network, which is, in this case, for this demonstration, a 10.0.0.0 network. That's a Class C, as you can tell by the subnet mask. And it will be using .1 as the default network. We'll now be asked to name the wireless network or the primary wireless LAN that we want to use. For this case, we'll be using Lab Network. You also want to enter a passphrase, and as you can see, I've done this a couple times before, so we'll just be entering in a easy, typical password that we'll use since it is a lab network. Otherwise, I would suggest using something secure, but that is easy to remember for your users. We'll go ahead and hit OK. This will cause the settings to be saved, but also the AP to reboot. So while this is going through the process, we'll go ahead and take a quick pause, and we'll be right back as soon as the AP is up and running. And we are back, and as you can see, the AP is loaded with the configuration changes. I've used the management IP address that we set up in the last step to access the page, and we'll go ahead and log in and finish our configuration. And I have the password saved for ease of use here. And first thing we'll do is go ahead and add the mesh AP, since that does take a few minutes to typically get logged in and set up, but it is very easy to set up. And I have that AP mesh extender right here. As you can see on the back, they do have the MAC addresses, and then if you're using the business wireless mobile app, you can use that to scan the QR code and get it loaded in. Once you're on this page, we'll go to local MAC addresses, and we'll want to add a MAC address. Again, I just have this saved for ease of use, so we don't have to go through a ton of steps, but you'll just pop that in and then give a nice description. I'm going to name this one Mesh Extender Office, so we know where it is and what it is. As I mentioned before, it could be an AP or anything else like that, so you'll really want to be kind of descriptive so you can have an easier time if you do need to troubleshoot. And we'll go ahead and add that, and I'll go ahead and get that plugged in here. And that'll just take a couple minutes to kind of boot up and get meshed. And if you do want to make any further changes, or should you miss the mesh step at the very beginning, you'll want to come down to mesh, and you can just apply it here, and then you can get access to some of the backhaul and other settings. And then they have a little reminder should you forget how to add a mesh extender or other AP or anything else that you want to mesh to right there. And then just some of the other cool things that I wanted to call out. They do have a number of primary AP tools and troubleshooting tools should you have issues, as well as configuration management. I know I just updated this, so I'm not sure why it's telling me that I need to again, but I do recommend that once you have everything set up properly, that you go ahead and make a config backup and then download it, and should you make any other changes, that's always a really solid thing to do as well. And then the other thing I wanted to call out real quick is the Cisco Business Dashboard, which I'll be doing a demo here at a little later in our solutions lab, but should you not want to use a virtual probe or other instance, a lot of these devices do have these dashboard connections built in. They do work a little better if you have an SSL certificate or something along those lines to kind of secure the connection and make it a little easier to connect. But as you can see, you can just use this AP, specifically the CBW 240, to connect directly to the dashboard and act as your local probe for a remote network, should it not be on the same one as the Cisco Business Dashboard. And then, as I said, we're going to add a guest network and VLAN to this. It's very easy. We'll just be naming it guest. Very, very easy indeed. And then we'll pop it over to VLAN, and we're going to do tagging. And I have set up a guest VLAN on 20, a data VLAN on 10, and a voice VLAN on 30 on our MX security device, which is working as our router and firewall for this lab network. On that MX, it controls the DHCP and some of the other things. So I'm not going to be showing that set up on these steps, but just know that you'll want to have something that can provide IP addresses on any kind of VLAN that you set up, and something that can potentially route in between the VLAN should you want it. And we've gone ahead and set up the VLAN, and then we're marking this as a guest network since it is. We're setting up the captive network assistant to kind of help out with some of the protections. And then a captive portal, if you do have an external splash page that you'd like people to jump to, they can. And then in this case, we'll use a web consent since it's just a lab, but you do have several other options that you can go with in this case. Or if you would like a more traditional, you can use Radius or WPA2, but we'll use web consent in this case. And we'll go ahead and apply it. And now you can see that we have both VLANs on. We'll go in and edit this lab network and go ahead and set up the data VLAN on this. So it can act as if it were a corporate network and get access to any kind of secure files that you would need. And we'll just mark this as 10, as I said, for the data VLAN. And now that we've taken care of that, let's see if we've had enough time for the access point to join. And we have, as you can see down here, the mesh extender shows up. It does show that it is mesh extender itself versus an AP, which would potentially, if you have multiple APs, will say that it's the primary AP or the primary preferred AP. if you have multiple ones. Occasionally there'll be a secondary and you can do failover as well, but in this case it's just a very simple wireless network and we have the mesh extended.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was informative and showed you how simple and easy it is to really manage and set up these wireless access points. That is one way of management. As we mentioned before, there are several other ways to manage, such as the mobile app or the business dashboard, which we'll be giving you a glance at a little later. It does have some additional features and different management, but it also still allows you to. And I think one of the greatest strengths is kind of the flexibility. You really can switch between management options, and there are even several other ones out there too, such as CLI or using a config file too. So they really let you tailor these hardware devices to whatever works best for your kind of business processes and devices. So I'm going to kind of give you a quick run through of what will power these APs and what kind of connects most of your network together. Cbs switches, or the Cisco Business Switches. And they start out with the Cbs 110 line. A lot of people are familiar with the SG 110 series. They're essentially the unmanaged lines. They are about 7 models. They come in compact desktop and rack mountable models. They're all fanless, which is really nice. So they're very quiet. They can really be put in any environment without needing to worry about the acoustics. I believe the models come in 5, 8, 16, and 24 port models with SFP uplinks, and they have the ability to use just regular PoE, not PoE plus. So if that is a concern, depending on the APs or that you're using or other devices that may have a higher power draw, you may want to look at one of the more advanced models. But they are a really great simple switch. It'll work right out of the box with plug and play. They have built in some pretty cool features like built-in QoS and loop detection. So you don't have anything to set up. It really is plug and play. You just pop it out and plug it right in. I really see these being really useful for small flat networks where you would only have a single switch, maybe connected directly to a modem or firewall device. Small office or home offices can be really great just to kind of pop again by your network devices where you really don't need any kind of additional configurations or VLANs or any advanced things like that. I also see them be really handy as something that a tech throws in their bag to kind of handle, imaging or any number of other things, or for cases where you might need temporary port expansion where, as we're going back in, or potentially your office has grown and you need to start sharing offices where maybe only 2 ports were pulled before, this can be a really great option to kind of fill those gaps in between. And they're at a really great price point, really great options. And if you do have any questions about these or want any further information, or as I go through some of the design choices, feel free to ask a question down below. We'll try to get it answered, but should it be more advanced or something that we can't answer during this, feel free to reach out to the Cisco support team or Cisco specialist team. I believe we have some details in the useful links, and we can definitely help you get all this stuff sorted out. So moving on kind of to the meat and bones of these series with the managed switches. The first that we'll see is the Cbs 220 series. It kind of migrated over from the SG 220 series. It really provides capabilities that help you create business class networks. These features deliver a solution to simplify the operations, increase uptime, and get your business better connected. They come in a lot of different port count options. What I would consider fairly standard in 8, 16, 24, and 48 port counts, not counting the uplinks. We're just talking about downlinks there. The other cool thing is they come in 1 gig or 10 gig uplinks using SFP or SFP plus ports. You would need to select between the two. They aren't dual ports, but they are really nice, and they really have the backbone there for you to be able to create kind of the multi-layered network that is best practice should you have a large enough network. And it really helps connect everything together. This is kind of the first series that will introduce PoE plus. So it's a really great option for wireless networks, voice networks, kind of anything like that does have a PoE need. You wouldn't quite necessarily be to some of the more advanced IoT features where they require UPoE, but it can still, this can cover almost every device out there. Additionally, these have several fanless models, so should you need something that's quieter, less power draw, or has less acoustics, you can definitely look at this line as well. kind of as a step up from these CBS 110 series. They have built in some additional security features such as BPDU protections, denial of service protections, and then the ability to use access control list, as well as some other features. So lots of really great, security features that you've come to kind of, require and assume. And most people should be using these out there with everything going on in cybersecurity. Additionally, and I'll kind of demonstrate this during our demo after I speak about the switches, they also have the ability to do auto voice and auto voice VLANing. So should you not be as comfortable with VLANing, these actually have some built-in controls. Should you be using Cisco phones or some of the other major manufacturers where they detect this voice traffic, they mark it as voice traffic. They can VLAN it off. They can set up its own QoS and COS, and I'll kind of allude to that a little bit in the demo. So some really great features, and as you'll see as we move up the series from the 220 to the 250 and from the 250 to the 350, these features don't go away. They just kind of get expanded upon and built upon. So I'll kind of call those out. But for use cases, truly a really great business class switch, really great option for almost any deployment. If you're using a 3-layer model, I can see these being really great at as an access switch. Really great for converged networks where you might be using voice, video, data traffic, and have all these things. This can really handle it and has the QoS and COS tools to handle it. And still, if it's a small office or home office or a smaller business where they maybe only have one switch, these are also a really great fit. It may be a better fit for those that have started to add VoIP and things like that onto their network, where they just need a little more control over how the data travels across the network. From there, we kind of step up to the Cisco CBS 250 series. There's approximately 20 models within this series. And whether you need basic high-speed connectivity for your computers and servers or a comprehensive voice and data and wireless technology solution, the Cisco Business 250 series is really a great switch series to look at. Again, lots of really great features. It essentially builds on a lot of the things that you see in the CBS 220 series. Additionally, these have 8, 16, 24, and 48 port gigabit downlinks, and as well as the ability to use SFP and SFP plus uplinks. So lots of really great options there for building and designing your network. Additionally, like the 220s, they share a lot of the features I already mentioned, but they also provide PoE plus as well, as I mentioned. But kind of where they step up to the next level is in that they provide layer 3 static routing with inter VLAN routing. So should you want to take some of that routing offload off maybe a firewall that you had that was just handling all the routing, or just take more control over your network and handling how it's traffic is essentially passed across the network, this is a really great option. And it really lets you start to take control. This is where a lot of the port aggregation and things like that start entering into the picture. So they're really, really great kind of medium road. I see this as a really great access switch again, essentially, but it could also work as a core switch on smaller collapsed networks, should they not have all the needs or not a ton of NOx or anything like that. You can really have this work as potentially a layer 3 switch where it's handling a lot of the routing. So lots of good options. It can fit in a lot of different places and a lot of different pieces with this. And then from there, we'll step up kind of to the flagship of the CBS series, the CBS 350. This one kind of migrates both the SG 350 series, 350X series, 550 series, and 550X series into it, which kind of simplifies having to choose between the series, which I always think is a great thing. It kind of continues on with 8, 16, 24, and 48 port models, but where it really kind of steps out is that it starts to bring in multi-gig and UPoE, which is really cool. And it also has SFP and SFP plus switches for distribution. So you can really start using it for those larger clients or larger businesses or deployments where you might have core NOC and then several operating closets out where you have truly built out the distribution, access, and core layers. So lots of really great options. As I mentioned, PoE plus. You can bring one of the cool things that this series brings into kind of the fight is the ability to truly stack across SFP plus ports. So it is limited to the SFP Plus models, but it does have the ability to stack. So it can definitely make management easier if you have a really large need for a lot of ports and port density. These are a really great option to simplify your management so that you can essentially, just manage it all from a single IP. As I mentioned, there are definitely distribution models, which really adds a lot of flexibility to what you can do with these and with your switching environment. And then kind of to build on the 220 and 250 series security, they've also added some additional features with IP MAC port bindings, as well as IPv6 first hop security. These are all both pretty easy to set up within the actual configuration. If you do have a little more questions on these actual security features, feel free to reach out to us or check out the manuals. Cisco has some really great manuals that kind of walks you through this. Now, kind of as I was talking about the 350 series, lots of really great design models available with the 350. You can use them in the core, you can use them in distribution, and you can use them in access. The SFP Plus models and SFP distribution switches really open up quite a bit. And it really makes sure that your network doesn't have any bottlenecks anywhere. And then again, similarly, you definitely have use cases. These can be used in all the similar aspects as above. They also have some additional segmentation features that make them really handy for wireless. And then one of the really beneficial things I've seen since the multi-gig has been added is that the ability to throw these into Wi-Fi 6 deployments using the SFP Plus uplinks, and then you're able to provide these Wi-Fi 6 APs with multi-gig connections. They can be a really great way to kind of segment your transition from an older gigabit switch to more modern multi-gig infrastructure. So lots of really great options, lots of really great places these can be used. So if you do have any questions about these, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a discussion or the design discussion or help you with designing a network around these. So with that, we'll go into the switching discussion or demo. I believe we're looking at setting up some VLANs and some just basic switch setup.
Go ahead and get us logged in. And I'm going to walk you through a few different steps. First, we'll be configuring an IP address on this device. From there, we'll be setting up a couple different VLANs. I'll talk about the auto voice VLAN that this has, which is a pretty neat feature. And we'll talk a little bit about QoS and CoS too, I guess. So let's go ahead and get started with the IP configuration. We'll just go ahead and pop down here. Right now, this has a dynamic IP address, which is kind of the default setting for these switches. In this case, this is essentially an OK IP address for this range. Normally, I would segment it depending on the IP scheme that's been determined for the business. But in this case, it's a lab setting, and this one is clear, and we're OK. And it'll kind of speed along the entire process. So we'll just go ahead and apply this one. Feel free to change it to meet your needs, though. But now we at least have a static IP address that we know will not change, and we are essentially set to go from there. As you can see, the default VLAN setting is always 1. I typically do recommend changing the default VLAN and away from the typical 1 and using something else for management and data and all those other things. But in this case, at this moment, we'll leave it as is. And we'll go ahead and click to VLAN settings. Whoop. And we're going to go ahead and add those extra VLANs we talked about. The first one we'll be adding is the data VLAN. And you always want to add a name that actually makes sense to you or is meaningful. That way you don't get confused. You may not use the full range of VLAN IDs, but it can definitely get confusing when you have multiple ones. 20 will be our guest. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll be adding a voice VLAN on this one. And now that those are added, we'll go down here, and this will actually be the first thing we'll touch on, is the auto voice VLAN. It's a really cool feature that's included in these switches. It operates using OUI and some other things, and it applies COS and DSCP via some automatic settings that it detects via the packet traffic and the MAC addresses of the devices. So we'll just want to make sure that we have the correct voice VLAN set. Now go ahead and apply that, and then down here you'll see a couple of different choices. We're going to do the auto voice VLAN because I think it's a really neat feature and it can really save you tech some time, but I'll also speak quickly about the telephone OUI. Should you want to use it, there's a lot of different manufacturers that are automatically added, and there are other ones that you can definitely make use of as well. All you have to do is just add them via the plus button. But it'll essentially recognize these phones, pick them up, automatically scheme it to the correct membership. And in this case, we're going with the other one, so we don't have this set up. But you can definitely tweak it should you prefer that one. But we'll go with the auto voice VLAN. I like the default settings. They're pretty much best practice for Cisco in this case for voice VLAN. So we'll definitely keep them at defaults. But COS and QoS and DSCP are powerful tools that you don't want to use without, planning and some knowledge and being aware of the choices you make will have a definite effect on the product and the user experience. So you want to be wary of what you do and the changes that you make to the data. But in this case, this is definitely best practice, and it's a really good option, especially if you're not potentially familiar with some of these technologies like QoS or COS. So, you can definitely deploy them without too much of a worry. Should you have any issues or anything like that, you can always turn it off and set them up yourself. It's really easy to do. And so now that we have these set, we'll just want to go ahead and assign the VLANs. And in the case of this network, the first port is the trunk network that's connected back to the MX. In the case of port number 8 is what I've connected the AP that we set up earlier to, and we're just going to go in and set up general access, and the administrative PID for this one is 10, and we'll go ahead and set that up and apply. And then we're just going to make sure that this one also has the guest VLAN on it as well. And you just verify there, and you can see that we have the primary VLAN of 10 and 20 is tagged. And then since we set up auto voice VLAN, whenever a phone would get plugged into any of these ports, it would automatically change the settings, which is pretty neat, and apply COS and QoS.
All right. Thanks, Skylar. A lot of great information so far. For those of you watching, just a reminder, you can continue to ask questions. We have a lot of great questions that have already come in. We will be doing Q&A in just a little bit, so we'll go through some of these questions. We're also dropping poll questions throughout this broadcast. Please answer the poll questions. Your feedback always helps us make sure we're putting out content specifically for you guys. But Skylar, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. So now we're going to kind of talk about the management, or as kind of marketing and other people like to call it, the single pane of glass that you'll use to kind of view your network and see what's going on. And it's a really cool tool. I know Mark's is excited about it as well because I've worked with him on this before. But Cisco Business Dashboard is a really cool tool. In my past life, I've used other kind of network management solutions, and they really aren't as nice as essentially this is. And one of the really cool things about it is just kind of how it manages the entire life cycle of your devices, from initial setup and discovery to management and configuration. It also integrates with third-party programs, which we'll talk a little bit about, but it also does monitoring. So, should you not want to handle the configuration via the dashboard and just use it for monitoring, you can definitely do that. And then it also has some tools built into it to kind of handle the lifecycle and management of those, to make it just easier to know, when you need to update firmware. Is this device finally going end of life? Does it need replaced? What might be the replacement? So Cisco's really tried to put together a package that'll help, the smallest mom and pop shop all the way up to the largest MSPs handle what they need to get done and customize the tool to how it needs to be to make their business processes work. One of the really cool things is lots of options on the hosting method. I know for our labs, I've kind of switched between several different ones, from native Linux hosting to Hyper-V to VMware, and I've backed up and restored from one, and backed up on one and restored to the other. So lots of really great options that you can really make work for you, whatever you may be comfortable with. Additionally, there's some options with Amazon Web Services. They have a metered device, as well as options to bring your own licenses should that tickle your fancy and you want something in the cloud. Additionally, they have some really cool integrations that they've done. One of the first ones they had done is with Kaseya, where they kind of migrated from Find IT to this. It does require a little additional licensing to make it work with Kaseya, but it does work, and it works directly in the Kaseya tool, which is really nice. And then they've recently added ConnectWise too, so it really should help out MSPs and help them integrate it with them. The other really cool thing is it makes use of APIs, and specifically REST APIs, so that should you want to, you can create your own monitoring tools very easily, as well as do several other things. I shouldn't limit it to that, but and then they've also put out some really great resources in terms of that on Cisco DevNet. So lots of really cool things that they're doing with it. They've really made a brilliant design, if I'm completely honest with how they manage it. So you may be asking yourself, is this free? Well, it is free for the first 25 devices, and that's Cisco Business devices. It's not other devices. I'll kind of show in the demo of the Cisco Business Dashboard here in a second that because we do use a lot of Meraki hardware in different parts of our network, that it will pick those devices up because of the Cisco Discovery Protocol, which is pretty neat, but it won't count them against the device count. So that's really nice. Once you do hit that 25 devices, they do have several options that you can do. There are subscriptions that you can go with, and then there are term-based licenses should you want something prepaid. Maybe you're not sure that you want to go with it, so you just want to buy something turn-based and try it out for a while. Or if you already have more than 25 devices, but you want to give the dashboard a try, as soon as you fire it up, you'll have a 90-day free trial where you have full access to everything. So you really don't have to worry about anything when it comes to that. I know we have a lot of really great resources that we've kind of provided in your links. I'll just kind of touch on them really quickly, but there are a lot of great YouTube videos out there. Additionally, Cisco has provided what's called a Cisco Business Dashboard Pod. It's a free resource that you can check out for 2 hours at a time on demand at any time. And it just lets you play with the dashboard and do anything you want to it. So it can be really handy if you don't want to take the time to set up your own lab or check it out. And then, as I mentioned, DevNet, they have a lot of really great extensive resources there, and then online manuals. You'll see just lots of really great things outlined in them, and they really will walk you through any steps you need. And a lot of times, if it's something a little more complicated, I would check the YouTube channel too, because they've walked you through a lot of the steps. So with that, we'll do a quick demo of the dashboard, and then we'll get to some question and answer. I know everyone's kind of antsy to get to that, and we'll kind of get going. 3, 2, 1. Let's take a quick look at the Cisco Business Dashboard. I won't be able to cover everything here, but I'm going to show you some of my favorite features of the dashboard and give you some insight that I think will help you out. This is the initial splash page that you'll run into. It essentially is at its default state right now, but it is fully customizable via the gear at the top, and you can also show all organizations or individual organizations. One of the greatest things Cisco did with this dashboard is make it so it'll work for a small mom and pop shop that only has a single location, all the way up to large MSPs that have multiple organizations with multiple network locations. So you really can customize it as much as you want, and it will give you a lot of really great insights at your fingertips. I'm going to dive right into some of my favorite features within the network. One of the coolest things I think is the network display, which allows you to see multiple locations geographically. That way, if your help desk or a tech is talking to one of your end customers and they're having an issue, all they have to do is ask them their address, and they can pull up the location directly, get a lot of network insight, see the number of network devices, see what's going on with each of those network devices, click through the acknowledgements, lots of really great things. And they can also see what's going on over the last 24 hours. can be really great, helpful, and kind of provide some quality of life to your text. From there, you can get into the network list where it basically displays the same networks, but it gives access to some additional information. Here you can see a network topology that the Cisco Business Dashboard created via the CDP or Cisco Discovery Protocol. Very, very handy tool. I've had to do no configuration for this. It was all out of the box. As long as you have CDP enabled, it's going to put together something like this. Additionally, should you have floor plans for your locations, you can also throw those in here and allow yourself to display the access points to try to get yourself a feel for where they might be, who might be connected to them, and if should there be troubleshooting, you can get locate them and resolve the issues, whether they be physical or hardware related or configuration related, whatever they may be. So lots of really great tools there, very quick and easy to use. My probably favorite screen that I use is the inventory screen. It allows you to access a lot of the information, even some of the information we just saw, really quickly, but it also lets you get into the technical nitty gritty. As you can see here, I clicked into a wireless access point and a mesh extender pair. This is a really cool and handy thing for troubleshooting should you run into issues with the meshing. You can see what the clusters are, what's being paired with what might be having issues with what, and then you can go in to see the logs. Is it having rogue access point issues? Is it having utilization issues? Any number of things. And then, as you saw before, you kind of get a glimpse into the last 24 hours of the device. There's also a lot of various actions that you can provide at your fingertips, as well as one of the other cool features is being able to click into each device and see, I've happened to click into one of the Meraki devices, which I should mention as well. Meraki can also be tied into this. It will not eat up a Cisco Business Dashboard license, but since it does use Cisco Discovery Protocol, it will be picked up. And if you set up SNMP, it can pull some of the monitoring stuff so that you have everything in one site. It happens that both our remote location and our lab location at the office both happen to use Meraki switches, so that's why you're seeing them picked up. But you can see here, once you click into these switches, it gives you a lot of insight into the devices, and these are actual sections of the Cisco Business Dashboard. So you're getting a lot of the access to the plug-and-play stuff. Port management is almost identically the same, and you can go in and make full configuration changes to the ports directly from the screen. You'll see a repository of backups should you have backup scheduled via the job scheduler, and lots of different things. And I'll touch on the job scheduler in just a moment. And then you could also view pending configs and event logs here. So lots of really great information right at your fingertips. And then, as you can kind of see, almost identical screen and configuration setup for the port management, and lots of really great tools. I happen to have smart ports disabled, but you can also manage those here should you have that set up. And then the network configuration wizard allows you to make a lot of really great massive changes to your network all via wizard very quickly, or you can choose individual sections of the wizard and deploy them en masse. The authentication one that I pulled up lets you remove and add new credentials to all the devices. So it can be really helpful. Plug and play I don't have set up, as you can see here, and I'll just touch briefly on it. It does allow for image management, and you do have configuration templates that you can create, edit, and deploy or copy whatever you may need. As one might expect, the Cisco Business Dashboard does provide all the kind of monitoring tools that one would expect from kind of any network management solution. We've also created several out-of-the-box reports that give insight into life cycle, end of life, if a device should be on our network, the maintenance cycle, should they need firmware upgrades or something like that, and then you can see some wireless insight if a network's being overutilized, if a specific AP is being overutilized, or if a client is being a bandwidth hog and digging too much into everyone else's throughput. And then probably my favorite feature as a former tech is the job scheduler. This really allows your techs and your customers' quality of life in that you can schedule these after hours via automation. Lots of different tasks, from backing up configuration, rebooting device, upgrading firmware, lots of different options out there. You can select specific devices, or should the option be network specific, such as upgrade all devices to firmware, to the latest firmware, you can just click network and it'll deploy it. And then you have the ability to do it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or my favorite is each change window. So if you take the time to set up your organizations, you can schedule it during the known change window when you know it won't interrupt their business. You can roll everything out. Really, really cool feature. And then I'll just touch on the actual organizations, as I mentioned, you can have multiple organizations and make it as granular. This is all done through here. Very easy to set up. And then once you have organizations set up, you can set up the multiple locations.
Awesome. That was a lot of great information, Skylar and Mark. Thank you so much for that presentation. We had a ton of questions that came in throughout that whole thing. Hopefully we can get to all of them in about the next 10 minutes. If we go a little bit over, we will. If we can't get to anything, we'll certainly get you the question or the answers after the fact. But we're gonna go back to the access points, and Mark asked, when will there be access points that offer 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6?
So I can answer that one. It's not going to be the greatest answer, but they are coming because of some of the supply shortages and stuff like that. It's kind of thrown the timeline into flux, but they are on the roadmap and they should be coming in the near future. But at this point, that's kind of as much information as we have or can provide, but they will be coming and they should integrate directly with the current access points.
It's going to be a big deal for us. So we'll make sure we make a huge announcement to all of our partners interested in this product line. It is on the roadmap coming, and we'll absolutely let you know.
Yes.
We'll stay on the supply chain line of things because that is one of the. It doesn't matter what products you're looking for. That's kind of the hot topic right now. Both we had Billy and we had Bob ask, when are we going to start seeing supply on both the access points and these new switches?
From the D&H side, I will say it's something that we do continually stock, and there are rolling stock orders. And as we're ramping up our new warehouse too, we're definitely trying to get in more and more stock for that. So you should see at least the D&H stock levels continually being refreshed, and you should start to see those levels going up in the near future because we do have a new warehouse that we're trying to ramp up. If you do have questions about when we might be restocking as D&H, you can always reach out to your sales team or to the Cisco team. We can definitely give you some insight into that because CCW isn't always, the D&H website isn't always necessarily accurate in those lead times. In terms of actually factory direct shipping, the lead times are shorter than some of the other devices and some of the enterprise devices. I will say they're significantly shorter than that. But for the time being, I would look for those to be extended or not extended, continuing to be extended to where they're at around 168 to 186 days. I know for the switches, but really keep an eye out for that D&H stock. It is something that, we're getting shipments every month, sometimes weekly, where they're being refreshed. It's just become so high in demand that it is something that sells out very, very quickly.
Excellent. Yeah, and that goes yes. Just keep in contact with sales. We will do our best to get you that information as soon as we have stock. I will always say place back orders. That's a great way of doing things as well. So yeah. we know how many you're looking for. Someone also asked, what are these devices all WPA3 capable? I'm assuming we're talking about the access points.
Yes, sir. All the ones we covered today are capable with WPA3 and WPA2 Enterprise as well.
Cool. What are the maximum number of access points that can be controlled by the primary?
I think their max, and I don't think it's a hard max, is about 50. I know they do say they recommend like a 25 to 30 APs, and then additionally, I think the mesh extenders have some limits too. I guess we can just mention real quick. I think it's 8 mesh extenders can be daisy chained together essentially, and then I think it's 25 mesh extenders per AP or something like that. So you have a lot of really great options to kind of build out your network.
Cool. Kind of moving on to the switches. And again, if you guys have any questions throughout the next couple of minutes, please hit us up. We're going to try and plow through as many as we can before the top of the hour. We want to respect your time, but we also want to answer as many questions as we can. Do the switches that you're talking about replace the SG switch lineup?
Yeah, that's a really great question. They do, most times they'll be typically direct replacements. Sometimes the SKUs and some of the nomenclature has changed a bit, and there will be some slight variations between the models in that the CBS don't always have the dual purpose uplinks. Some of them do, some of them don't. So that's kind of one of the major changes, but the SGs are the, or I'm sorry, the CBS series are the direct replacement of the SG series.
Cool. During your demo, you were talking about kind of the voice VLAN options. Evan asked, I see that NEC has been added as a voice VLAN option in the automatic voice VLAN settings. Has that been proven to work with all NEC IP phones?
I believe it's most, I essentially the way, and I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with all the NEC phones, but essentially the way it works is using an OUI, which is an organizationally unique identifier. So it basically takes the first part of MAC addresses and it identifies it as part of an organization. So if you did happen to have some NECs that it wasn't picking up automatically, all you would have to do is add, if they had, you know, as companies grow and they deploy more and more phones, eventually they would run out of that OUI. So if they would happen to have had to add an additional OUI and it isn't getting picked up by like a Cisco update or something like that, all you would have to do is add the string at the beginning of that to the auto voice VLAN thing, and it should pick it up. But typically, I've had a lot of success with it. My experience is typically with Cisco phones, just because of my background, but it worked really well for that. So I would imagine with another great manufacturer like NEC that it would as well.
Evan had another great question, and it's a great question because I barely understand what he's talking about. I'm sure you do, so we'll hopefully try and keep this answer short. What is the proper port mirroring procedure for these data switches?
There's actually a couple settings built in. Like I believe it's actually a subsection, but where you actually do just allow port mirroring. But I can get you a guide on how to do it properly, so you don't have to kind of take notes during this. I have a couple manuals, and you know, we can even have a call, and I can kind of walk you through it if you would like. That's not a problem at all.
All right, Evan, I'll get Skylar your email after this broadcast is over, so you guys can take that talk offline, and then Skylar, you can tell me what port mirroring is later.
Sure.
So to educate me a little bit. We're gonna move on to the network management. Bob asked, when you say ConnectWise, do you mean manage, automate, or both?
I believe it's ConnectWise Manage. It's something that they just very recently came out with. I actually just heard about it last week from them. So let me follow up with some of my resources there. But I believe it's, unless Mark's sure otherwise, but I believe it's ConnectWise Manage. It might be both, but I believe it is Manage.
Yeah, I've heard of the management piece of it. Have not heard anything on automation yet, so I'm not too familiar with that. But if I find any info, I'll send it to Skylar to send your way.
All right, one last question on the network management. Where does the Cisco dashboard run? Is it running on Prem or is it hosted in the cloud?
Really great question. So it can be either, actually. Our lab is hosted in at our tech headquarters on a VMware ESXi server. And essentially you would have a main one, which is the central one or the dashboard, and then you have remote locations which use a business dashboard probe, and it can be either part of the hardware as you saw in the one demo. It can be a virtual device as well. It can be a Raspberry Pi. Lots of different options there. So essentially the probes call home over 443 or whatever port that you have set up to the dashboards, and then it kind of just handles the management and a lot of those things from there. But it is, but you can also have it in the cloud too, should you not want to host it yourself virtually. I know it works with AWS, and I believe they're working on Hyper-V as well. So it can be either. It really, whatever fits your needs best.
Okay. We have a couple of Cisco just general questions I want to run through real quick. If you can answer them, if you can't, don't worry about it. We'll get these guys the answers when they want to. Carlos wanted to know, what's the best way to get authorized to sell Cisco?
We have a dnh.com/driven page, which I'm not sure if it's included in our useful links. If it's not, we can definitely get it to you. That has a really great rundown of several ways to become a Cisco partner and authorized. But one of the really cool things about these products is that other than the dashboard, they don't require any extra licensing, and they additionally don't really require any authorization or special things to sell. You can just call up your rep or call up the Cisco team and ask them to buy this. Now you definitely do get some additional price breaks and discounts and some other really cool things if you do become a partner and specialized, and the DNH driven portal will walk you through that, but these don't actually need it. But I would definitely refer you to the driven portal. It'll walk you through all of that.
Is the driven portal available to our Canadian viewers and customers?
I'm not sure. I can definitely
I was trying to answer.
on that.
I was trying to get answers to that question during your demos, and I wasn't able to get one. So we'll loop back for the Canadian customers that were on the call, because we had a couple questions about driven for Canada. So we'll get that information passed along to you. Real quick, if you have a chance, if you want to take a crack at a Meraki question,
Sure.
There's a question that came in that we have a client who purchased Z3 HW telework gateways. It has a 170-day lead time. Are any of these products compatible?
Unfortunately not. Cisco did have a pretty cool RV series, but due to some of the supply constraint shortages, they had to discontinue it a little early. Later this year, there will be a replacement for it, which would potentially be an option for that. But really, you'd want to look at an MX67 or 68 probably, because I know the 64 is getting discontinued.
Cool. Bill asked very early on in this presentation, and it's something that I really could use as well sometimes. Is there a glossary for all the POE, WPA, WAP, whatever acronyms that you use throughout this broadcast? If not, we need to write one and really sell it.
Good question.
Ebook.
I know
Yeah,
I'm a little
that'd
bit
be a pretty good
guy.
Yeah, so we definitely have an official Cisco glossary of terms. So if you Google Cisco glossary terms,
Yes.
they're going to be the Cisco specific acronyms. But what you mentioned, WPA, WPA3, those are industry standard acronyms. So those might be in a different dictionary, if you will. So, but from a Cisco specific acronym perspective, we definitely have that if you Google Cisco glossary terms.
I mean, for training purposes here at DNH internally, I kept a glossary of those type of terms for broad technology. But even when you get into networking, every other word that comes out of your mouth, this is like a 3-letter acronym for something.
It's so true.
So true.
All right. Go ahead.
Because it's valuable.
Yes. At some point, your brain just gets wired, and you don't even realize you're saying letters. You just think you're saying the full, wireless access point, and you connect to whatever. Thank you guys so much. This was incredibly detailed presentation. A lot of great information. If you missed any of this presentation, or you want to watch it again, watch some of these great demos that were available, this broadcast will be on demand. Usually it's ready by the early next week. So check your inbox. You'll be getting a notification when this is available on demand. If you have any additional questions, or you have anything else you want to kind of cover, you can email Cisco Specialist at dnh.com. Or for the Canadian group, you can email Cisco Specialist CA at dnh.com. Our next broadcast is March 24th. We'll have a DNH TV event where we'll be talking about next generation of technology. We'll be covering 12th gen Intel. We'll be covering DDR5 memory and so much more. Please register for that, and we look forward to seeing you then. But with all that being said, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Skylar, so much for your wisdom and time today. And I hope everyone has a fantastic St. Patrick's Day, and we will see you guys later.
Thank you so much, Chris.